Welcome back to the Friar Talk podcast and YouTube channel. For today's episode, we're going to be discussing Tommy Pham, and I feel like we haven't mentioned Tommy Pham in a very, very long time on this channel, but his name kind of resurfaced because he came out and said that he is open to playing first base, and a lot of people were talking about adding him. I know Borna of Hogwatch, he was talking about it. He's in favor of bringing Pham back on, I think he said 1 year, $5 to $6 million. I mean, we got to talk about this guy because he was here last year. He was definitely underwhelming, but when you start to look into the advanced analytics and some of the stuff, you do see some things you like. And I think one of the things before we really get into him, it drove me crazy last year when Tommy Pham would hit in the fifth spot, and I talked about that many times. If they re-sign him and he's hitting in the fifth spot, I think it's an awful idea. I will say that first. So when we go into this discussion, I'm going to act as if he will not be a guy bringing runners in, but rather be at the top of the lineup or at the bottom of the lineup to get on base, as that being his role, because I think he's a lot better in that role. So, Isaac, what do you think about bringing Tommy Pham back? How do you feel about the potential reunion?
So when he said that he'd be willing to play first base, in my head, I thought this guy should not touch first base other than when he's hitting. He should not defensively be a first baseman. I just don't think that's kind of his role. You look at, I just don't think it fits for him. But that's not to say that I'm not willing to bring him back on a 6 to 8 year, 8 million, not 8 year. I'm sorry, guys. 8 million. 8 million might be a little much. 6 million, 7 million. I think that's good for him. Matt brought up the advanced analytics. If you go look at his baseball savant page, it's actually pretty damn good. Like exit velocity, 77th percentile, max exit velocity, 86th percentile, hard hit percentage, 84th percentile, like chase rate, 98th percentile. Oh, he's bringing it up right now. Like, look, it's not that bad. Of course, defensively could use some work, but for anyone who remembers the hot stretch he had from what was it, like end of May to early July, he like hands down was the perennial leadoff hitter that other than Tatis, he fulfilled that spot so good. And of course, people have seen on Twitter his political views and whatever that you guys don't like about him. Like to me, yeah, I mean, it's a little messed up, but at the same time, it's baseball. He's playing baseball for us, playing for our team, and I won't hold that against him at all. But you look at the rest based on ball percentage. We've always known that he's been a really good, really good at walking. And it shows he's in the 95th percentile, sprint speed 69, chase rate 98th percentile. Like he's been so good at that throughout his whole career. And of course, it didn't seem like that last year. And his biggest flaw was, my goodness, how many times he was grounding out into double plays. He was Eric Hosmer Jr. But remember what he was coming off of, like he had the incident outside of a strip club. I think everybody knows about that. And that could severely hinder you for a long time. So I think with strengthening of and getting back into his mojo during the off season, he might actually be worth it if he's. I mean, he already seems desperate. He already seems like he'd be able to sign for. He'd be willing to sign for whatever money it is. I think 7 million is perfect for him. 6, 7 million. If that's what it takes to bring back Tommy Pham to a corner outfield spot, primarily left field, of course, unless you want to put Myers over there, whatever it is. He could even be a death piece. That is, I would take that all day.
I mean, you look at this team right now, and what are they lacking the most? They're lacking a depth piece. There's question marks about who's going to be the leadoff hitter. And we just looked into his baseball savant numbers. He had 15 home runs last year. He got stabbed right before the season started. Like that's gonna hinder your power a lot. And he still had 15 bombs. And if you start looking into the free agents, it's not like that's like a huge power drop off from a lot of these guys based on their average numbers. And if Tommy Pham was hitting 20, like he'd probably be up there with a lot of the current free agents on the board that people want to pay 3-4 times the amount for 5 extra years. Think about that. That is a drastically different price for someone else. And if you could potentially, and most of these guys too, like Pham defensively isn't great. The other guys in the market aren't great either. So when you start looking at it and you go, Pham for 6 million, I think 6 million is the number. That's what I personally would guess. I've seen some people say that maybe he can make double digits, but he'd be making a lot more than he did last year. And last year was was definitely underwhelming. Even though we just brought up the advanced analytics, like I think they showed like something to be desired, but I don't know. I think $6 million on a 1 year deal. I think that could be a huge way to kind of just like buy a guy low, which is something that the Padres have struggled to do. So you look at him. I think that his role could be a depth outfielder. Maybe they bring up Hassel and he starts platooning with Myers or whatever that is. But I think that both corner outfield spots this year, I guess it does depend on who they bring in, but I think it's very likely to be like rotating door kind of between left field and right field, where you have Myers someday, you have Pham someday, you have both of them someday. Let's put another guy's name in the mix, whatever it is. And I think that we could very well see that. Hitting wise, I brought up the fifth hitter thing. He should hit exclusively 1, 8, and 9. And I say 1. I think some people might be like, "You really want Tommy Pham hitting leadoff?" Tommy Pham was really good when he was hitting leadoff last year. He walked so much. He saw the count. Yes, he strikes out a lot. Right now, your best two options on your roster, or your best option right now, is Trent Grisham. And we've seen that Trent Grisham gets into massive slumps. But we've also seen that Tommy Pham gets into massive slumps. So if you play the hot hand at the leadoff spot, I think your number one hitter, like your leadoff hitter, might have very good numbers if you rotate that between Trent Grisham and Tommy Pham. And I think they might, like, if you take out them individually, they might not have the best numbers. But I think that if you play it right, you can definitely have your number one hitter having a much better season than both of those guys individually. And then when they're struggling, they hit in the 9 hole. And I think that's a really good spot to do it. I think that's a really good idea, especially with DH now. Like, you can have that full lineup. Your ninth hitter being kind of like your second leadoff hitter. Well, if you have those two guys, then I think that's a really good way to do it. Defensively, there's a lot to be desired, but also there is a lot to be desired with Kyle Schwarber, Chris Bryant, Nick Castellanos, like the other names on the market. And I don't know if the Padres are in on all these guys, but the other names on the market are not good defensive outfielders. He is a significant upgrade over Nick Castellanos. Nick Castellanos is terrible as an outfielder. I think that just kind of gets brushed under the rug. But Tommy Pham for $6 million, I think you got to sign me up on that one.
Yeah, so quick question for you, Matt, because, I mean, we talked about it a little bit. You're saying Trent Grisham or Tommy Pham at leadoff. Does that mean you want Tatis batting second or fourth? Second? Okay,
Second.
Cool. Okay, cool. So then me and you aren't that far off. Because I want him batting leadoff just because I think, with the DH especially, I want my best guy getting the most at bats, And I think if you're able to put Trent Grisham and somebody else who gets on base a lot at 8 and 9, you're setting up a lot of RBI opportunities for him no matter what. But second, batting second he's right there. So, it won't matter as much, like that much. But of course, I want Tatis batting leadoff, and the numbers show that he's best in the 1 and 2 holes. So even cleanup, he was really, 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 really good last year. So, but with that being said, Tommy Pham, of course, I was probably out of Chase, Matt, and I don't know who was his biggest hater, but I did not like him for a while. He's just, like I said, he grounded out into a lot of double plays to the shortstop. But if I'm gonna give Hosmer the benefit of the doubt when we're talking about the DH, I gotta give Tommy Pham the benefit of the doubt when I say that this new hitting coach is supposed to emphasize, getting the ball in the air, and that might actually help Tommy Pham stop grounding out into all those double plays. And with the, I don't know who makes the lineups. I don't know if it's AJ Preller or last year it was Jace Tingler, but let's say it's Bob Melvin. I think Bob Melvin's smart enough to not have Tommy Pham batting fifth. And of course, that could change if Tommy Pham's hitting for a lot of power. Now, remember, I think personally the only guys that should not have any change in the lineup, or at least, coming out of the top 4, Manny, Jake, and Fernando. I think those guys in the top 4 are solidified. So there's only one more spot up there. But that should go to whoever's hitting for the most power. And, whoever that may be. But Tommy Pham really solid at getting on, and Matt brought up the other options. They're pretty bad defensively, especially Nick Castellanos, who everybody, outside of, I'd say a couple people don't want and can acknowledge that he played in a really small ballpark. He's not very great defensively, and that's something that needs to be acknowledged more considering how much he wants. He wants a little less than Chris Bryant, but he also does not offer the positional versatility that Chris Bryant offers. So I think that's Nick Castellanos will be stealing from us if we sign him. Now Tommy Pham, of course, great depth piece, and if he's got a platoon with Will Myers, let's say we sign Seiya Suzuki, and Seiya Suzuki becomes so good that he becomes our everyday right fielder, and you want to platoon Will Myers and Tommy Pham. That's perfect. I think that's great. So yeah, I'm on board with Tommy Pham. I think there's a certain extent to where I'm still on board, but as long as it's for the amount of money that Matt and I have been saying, yeah.
I think one other thing to kind of bring up in that, I think if you sign Tommy Pham, I think it makes it a lot more likely that you go and get Nelson Cruz. And you look at your lineup then, you just got a table setter, and you just got Nelson Cruz added to your lineup. Nelson Cruz is your everyday DH. I hope he doesn't play in the outfield. But if he's your everyday DH and you have Tommy Pham as kind of a table setter, then that makes your lineup that much better. If you have Nelson Cruz hitting fifth, I'll say mine. Like if you have like Grish or Pham at 1, and then you go 2, 3, 4, Tatis, Cronenworth, Machado, and then you have Nelson Cruz at 5. Like that's a pretty dangerous lineup. So I think that's for roughly 16, 18 million. That's not too bad to add two guys there. So I definitely think it's possible. And I think if you want to go a cheap direction in the outfield, I think Tommy Pham's a very good option to do that. Also for him, if he comes back and the Padres ball out and he does great, he's probably going to get a pretty solid deal after that. I know he's a bit older, but he could sign like a 2-year deal that's pretty big because the last 2 years in San Diego have not been his career averages. Like he's been a lot better in the past. So I think that's also something to bring up there. But I don't know. Let us know what you guys think. Should Tommy Pham be re-signed on a 1-year, $6 million deal? Let us know. Talk to you guys soon.